When my nephew, 13-year-old Oliver Walsh, first told me he had a dream that kept repeating every night, I didn't think much of it. Kids dream all the time, sometimes about flying, sometimes about school, sometimes about things that make absolutely no sense to adults. But the way Oliver talked about his dream, the way his brown eyes lit up with a mix of excitement and fear, made me pay attention. I'm his aunt, after all, Aunt Danielle, or Aunt Donnie, as he prefers, and ever since his mother, my sister, passed away 4 years ago, I've tried to be someone he can trust, someone who won't brush off the things he feels deeply. The first time he mentioned it, we were sitting in my living room on a quiet Saturday morning. The sun was streaming through the half-open blinds, casting golden stripes on the carpet while Oliver sat on the floor with his sketch pad. He always loved drawing. Even when he was little, he scribbled shapes before he could form sentences properly. Now, his sketches actually looked like something: trees, buildings, animals, and sometimes worlds that didn't exist. Art wasn't just a hobby for Oliver, it was the one thing that helped him feel close to his mom. That morning, he'd been sketching something that didn't look like his usual naturescapes. Instead, it was a tall building with glass windows, a painted mural across its front, and a group of kids with backpacks walking in. He kept staring at it, shading the edges, adding tiny details only he cared about. "What's that, Ollie?" I asked from the couch where I was sipping coffee. He hesitated for a moment before answering. "It's from my dream. I keep seeing this building. Every night." "What kind of building is it?" He looked down at his drawing again. "I think, a school. But not a regular one." I sat up straighter. "Not regular how?" He pressed harder with his pencil, shading in one of the windows. "It's like an art school. A place where everyone gets to create stuff all day. Paint, draw, sculpt, do the things I like." He paused, his small voice softening. "Every night in my dream, I walk inside, and it feels like I'm supposed to be there." My heart squeezed a little. Oliver rarely talked about things he wanted for himself. Ever since his mom passed, he always worried about being a burden, always asking permission, always making sure his dad, my brother-in-law, wasn't stressed. Oliver's dad, Jason, worked 2 jobs and did everything he could to raise Oliver alone. But life hadn't been easy for them. "Do you want to go to a place like that?" I asked gently. Oliver shrugged. "I know it's just a dream." "That's not what I asked." His cheeks flushed pink. He always did that when he felt embarrassed. "Yeah," he whispered. "I want to go, more than anything." And that's when something shifted inside me. I didn't know how or when, but I knew I was going to help him get there. What I didn't realize then was that helping Oliver would change my life as much as his. The next day, I started researching art programs and schools in our state. I spent hours scrolling through websites, reading reviews, looking at tuition fees that made my stomach sink. Specialized art schools were expensive, far more expensive than Jason could ever afford, especially with their medical debt. I didn't want to hurt his pride by suggesting he couldn't pay for it, but I also knew the reality. When I visited their house that evening, I found Jason in the kitchen, packing Oliver's lunch for school. He looked exhausted, still wearing his uniform from the hardware store where he worked day shifts before heading to his security job at night. "How are you holding up?" I asked. He smiled tiredly. "Same as always." "What's up, Donnie?" I hesitated before telling him about the dream Oliver had been having in the art school he described. Jason listened intently, leaning against the counter, his hands motionless for the first time all day. "I know he loves art," Jason said quietly. "He used to draw every day with his mom." His voice cracked just a little. "If she were here, she'd want him to go after what he loves." "So would you," I said, watching him carefully. "Of course. But I can't afford." "I know." I stepped forward. "Jason, I want to help. Let me." His brow furrowed. "Donnie, please. I'm not trying to step in as anything other than his aunt who loves him. And I know you don't accept help easily. But this isn't pity. This is about giving Oliver a chance he deserves." He stared at the counter for a long moment before finally nodding. "If you can find something reasonable, we'll try." That was all the permission I needed. Over the next few weeks, I searched relentlessly. Every lunch break at work, every evening at home, every spare moment, I dug through programs, scholarships, community groups, anything that could bring Oliver closer to the dream he kept seeing in his sleep. When I finally discovered the Brighton Arts Youth Academy, about 40 minutes from our town, I felt my heart leap. It wasn't a private elite school. It was a community-supported art academy that provided scholarships for kids who showed passion and talent. They didn't require straight A grades or wealthy parents. They just needed proof that the kid loved art enough to put in the work. Oliver fit that requirement more than anyone. I told him about the academy one Sunday afternoon when I took him for ice cream. He listened with his eyes wide, a sprinkle of chocolate on his lip. "They're accepting applications now," I said. "For real?" he asked, almost afraid to believe it. "For real." He let the spoon drop into his cup. "Aunt Donnie, but what if I'm not good enough? What if they don't want me?" "Oliver Walsh," I said, leaning my elbows on the table. "If there's anyone they'd want, it's you. You don't just draw, you feel what you draw." He smiled sheepishly. "We just need to prepare your portfolio," I continued. "Your best work, and maybe a few new pieces." He blinked slowly, then nodded with determination. "Okay, let's do it." For weeks after that, every evening became an art session at my kitchen table. I bought him new sketchbooks, brushes, and paints, not expensive ones, just better than the dried-up ones he'd been using. We played music in the background, sometimes pop songs he liked, sometimes soft instrumentals that helped him focus. My living room slowly transformed into an art studio filled with color, imagination, and life. Often, Oliver would stop and stare at something he drew, lost in thought. He once told me that one of the pieces, a drawing of a woman painting at sunset, was inspired by his mom. He didn't cry when he said it, but I did, silently, hoping he wouldn't notice. But he did notice. He always noticed. "You miss her too," he said softly, touching my arm. "I do," I whispered. We both sat quietly for a moment before he added, "Thanks for helping me, Aunt Donnie. I know you're tired after work, but you still come." "That's what family does," I said. "We show up." When the portfolio was finally complete, we submitted it along with the application. I held my breath for days, checking my phone every hour even while pretending not to. Then, one Thursday afternoon, the email came. "We are pleased to inform you." I gasped so loudly that my coworkers thought I had seen a spider. I couldn't contain my excitement. I practically flew out of the office on my break and drove straight to Oliver's school. When he came out of the building, backpack slung over one shoulder, I waved him over. "Did something happen?" he asked, noticing my overly bright smile. I handed him my phone. His face changed instantly, confusion, disbelief, joy, fear, and pure, radiant excitement all rolled into one expression. He covered his mouth with his hands, tears forming in his eyes. "I got in," he whispered. "You got in," I said, pulling him into a hug. He hugged me back tightly, burying his face in my shoulder. Thank you, thank you." When we told Jason that evening, he looked stunned, then proud, then worried about finances again. But before he could protest, I told him the scholarship covered nearly everything. He sank into a chair, overwhelmed. "I don't know how to thank you," he said. "You don't have to." Oliver started at the academy 2 weeks later. The first day I drove him there, he stared at the building in awe. It looked exactly like the one in his dream. Same tall windows, same mural on the front, kids walking inside with backpacks and art supplies. He whispered, "This is it. It's the place." I believed him. His first semester was full of discovery, painting techniques, digital art, sculpture, even animation basics. Every week he came home with new stories, new friends, new visions for his future. He thrived in a way I'd never seen before. One evening, near the end of the school year, he handed me a wrapped canvas. "This is for you." When I opened it, I froze. It was a painting of the two of us sitting at my kitchen table, surrounded by art supplies, smiling at each other. The caption at the bottom read, "Dreams come true when someone believes in you. Oliver." I cried harder than I'd cried in years. "You believed in me, Aunt Donnie," he said softly. So I believed in myself. I hugged him tightly, overwhelmed. In that moment, I realized something profoundly simple. Helping Oliver wasn't just about fulfilling his dream. It was about healing a part of my own heart that missed my sister every day. Through him, she lived on. Through his art, her spirit kept glowing. Years later, Oliver would go on to become an art instructor at that very academy. He always told his students the same thing. Every dream starts as a sketch. But you need the right person to help you color it in. And every time he said it, he would smile at me.